I'm John Rausch, and I'm a Glenmary Home Missioner. I work in Central Appalachia in a little county called Powell County in eastern Kentucky. I'm here in Rome right now, so you might hear some of the traffic in the background, and there's a wonderful place here where we're just staying in the hotel. Now, the reason I'm here is because we had a conference on spirituality and sustainability. Now, those things are related because it is through our spirituality that we're going to save the earth. Now, what I mean by spirituality is really connectedness. That's what it really means. That it's not simply quantifiable, it's not a bunch of numbers. However, spirituality means that my heart is also embracing the world around me. It's embracing the poor around me, it's embracing my brothers and sisters around me. It's also, though, embracing God's garden in which I live. We are all part of creation, and somehow we forget that. Somehow we think that all of creation is just to be used. You know, in Genesis, God, after 6 days of creation, God said, "This is very good." Okay? Why didn't God just say, "This is useful"? Because the garden has beauty in itself, and through that beauty, we understand who God is. God has given us all these great gifts, and it's through that beauty that our spirits are renewed on a daily basis. We really feel our hearts uplifted, and therefore we can share with people. It's the greed of this world that has caused the pollution and caused the degradation of God's garden. So we met in Assisi, which is approximately 100 miles north of Rome, and there for 7 days a group of about 55 people sat and talked about how we can take our spiritual lives and apply that to the whole way of working around creation and caring for God's creation. In that time together, we certainly heard that we were all connected. We're all part of creation. There's no question about that. My body, my hands, my body is made up of all the elements that are around in the trees and in the grass and whatever. God has also breathed into me God's Spirit, and God's Spirit is also in all of creation around us. So I met with these 55 people to once again try to think through how we can be people of the Spirit and people who can tell other people of faith that we cannot just allow God's garden to be disrupted, but it is the source of great spiritual strength, as well as a time in which we grow as human beings. I work in Central Appalachia. Right now, we have a very great problem. The coal industry, which has nurtured the Industrial Revolution for so many years, suddenly finds itself as one of the contributors, a major contributor to the destruction of the atmosphere, and also the cause of many types of sicknesses, from cancer to upper respiratory problems, to heart problems, various kinds of lesions and things like that. People who have lived with coal for so many years, 150 years plus, suddenly realize that we have got to change our way of living life. Change, because without that change, we will continue to despoil God's garden, and we will cause sickness, and we will cause great havoc in the world, not least of which would be the rising of the oceans, the spoiling of our water and our land and our soil. All these things will contribute to the health problems of the future. So I came here because from Appalachia, I know that I need to help encourage a more sustainable way of living life in the mountains. Many times, whole areas of central Appalachia really owed their life to the coal industry. There were coal camps. Now, we want to take those coal camps and see what we can do through entrepreneurship, through renewable energy sources, through ways in which we can work together to bring about a renaissance in that whole area so that people can live a dignified life and really respect the land and, as I said, God's garden. Unfortunately, in central Appalachia, we have over 500 mountains that have been blown up in order to retrieve the coal, and that coal goes into coal-fire electrical generating plants. It also goes into the forging of metal like steel, iron and steel. All these things have been done for the sake of the world outside. In Appalachia, we consider ourselves a mineral colony. That means we have the coal and the gas and the oil, but corporations come in, extract that for the good of people outside. What's left is basically pollution, and also people who have many times broken lives because coal mining is an enormously physical activity, and people come down with bad backs, strained arms and muscles. They come down ultimately with black lung, which will take their life. Black lung pneumoconiosis will eventually cause the person to actually almost like drown in his own, with his own lungs, not able to get enough air, not actually to get enough oxygen to survive. So these are the negative parts of coal. And this, for so many years, we have thought that coal could be the mainstay of our civilization. But now, the unexpected consequence is the health problems for human beings and the health problems for the earth in general. It's now time to really shift our emphasis to renewable resources of energy, and also to find ourselves in partnership not only with one another but also with the earth. Without that partnership, we will not be really making the nod towards God's plan that we could live together. When you consider the first chapter of Genesis, there are 2 times that God says, "Be fruitful and multiply." The one time was with all of the animals, and God saw all the winged creatures and the crawling creatures and the creatures in the ocean, and he said, "Be fruitful and multiply." Then a couple verses later, human beings are on the earth, and he says, "Be fruitful and multiply." The point is, God is a God of life. God is a God of abundant life. And when we go through and destroy the habitat so that animals and people can live, then we really are ultimately committing a suicide for ourselves, and we are assailing all of creation, something like an ecocide, if you will, about the whole world around us. So I come to this conference in Assisi, a place of great spiritual depth because of St. Francis and St. Clare, people who were totally devoted to the poor, totally devoted to God's creatures, totally devoted to a relationship with the earth and with God. And it is a very spiritual place, and as a result of that, I come away spiritually renewed, and I would like to take this same renewal back to the people that I work with in eastern Kentucky, better known as a part of central Appalachia.